Welcome to PPR Podcast number 156. My name is Rudy. The star of the podcast sits to my right. His name is Grossman, Bert Grossman. Both of us, you certainly have a football background. I like football. But this has been a football conversation mostly, Bert.
Yeah, when you're so dominant at one sport and you come on a football topic, you must be pretty dominant.
Yes, because we're branching out. Would you like to introduce our guest tonight?
John Meyers from Poway High School Wrestling.
And there he is right there. Coach, when I think of dynasties, and since I've been in town, I can think of Oceanside and football, RB and baseball, and neither compares to the dynasty that is Poway Wrestling, and now you are in charge of that. How does it feel to be the king of kings?
I don't really think of it like that, but we had a great season this year, and something we've been working towards since, the last time, 2009, to get back on top of California.
Coach, I grew up in Pennsylvania and wrestling was so big there. When I came out here, it really wasn't. And, watching your program is like the one thing that kind of makes you feel like you're back in Pennsylvania because it's pretty much at the same level or higher and the same kind of commitment. How do you do that in California? It must be hard because pretty much in San Diego, besides maybe Valhalla, you guys are really the only ones that do it at that level.
Yeah, I kind of love the fact that we're in beautiful San Diego, thought of as kind of a laid-back surfer town. And here we have these, these killer wrestlers, just fantastic on the mat. And just working with these kids since they're young and we have that mantra that I've said before that, these kids have learned at an early age that we want to do hard things every single day. And, they've been working towards goals like this since they've been in 4th, 5th grades as well.
Can I do a follow-up?
Yeah, sure.
Because, back to the thing, I think you're from Connecticut, right?
Correct.
And so you remember, and obviously, wrestling's always in the winter, and you know how it gets back there. You can't go outside. You can't do anything else. It's just nonstop wrestling, and you think they become so much better because of that. Here, how do you compete with young kids that want to go surfing, skiing in Big Bear? Anything you want to do, you can do here. How do you make that the number one priority?
Well, we have those kids on our team, too. We have over 80 kids on our high school team, and, we just happen to have maybe 20 to 25 that dedicate their lives to great academics and great wrestling. We do have kids who love to surf and, do things, only during the season as far as wrestling goes. But we have a group of very, very dedicated kids who are so focused on the sport of wrestling and academics as well. There's not a lot of other things on their mind.
You say 80 kids. There are football programs that would kill to have 80 kids. And do you find them, the wrestlers, or do the wrestlers find you?
A little bit of both. The year before COVID, we had 97 kids on the team that year. We do a really good job of, looking around for athletes, sometimes that are not wrestlers starting out and, looking at PE classes and other sports and things like that. And I think the biggest thing we have going for us in that area is that, our program, we try to build it on great values and great morals. And so the kids and the parents, I think, know that they're getting more out of our program and the sport of wrestling than just kind of winning and losing. So I think we have that going for us as well.
How do you manage 80, 90 kids facility-wise? Because growing up, it was always, the wrestling room looked like a dungeon in the basement next to the school boiler, and then the mats are all set up. How do you do 90 kids, every day?
We're very fortunate. We have the Doc Monday Wrestling Center. Gentleman, Doc Monday, who lived in Poway, he donated $1.5 million to build this facility that we have right on campus. We have a very large main wrestling room with 3 40 by 40 mats with kind of stadium seating in there as well. We have wrestling coaches' offices in there, and then we have a smaller wrestling room, a 2-mat wrestling room as well. So we can run 2 fairly big practices at one time. We could fit about 70 to 75 kids in the main room, and then about 30 in the back room. And then we have our own weight room as well.
Goodness gracious.
You guys are elite. I always had the most respect of all the sports, and this dates back to when I was a pimple-faced kid in high school. I always had the most respect for the wrestlers, simply because while we were wolfing down cheeseburgers at lunch, they were counting peas, and counting peas religiously, trying to make weight. I don't know if cutting weight is still part of the wrestling in 2024. I'm betting probably it's not, but that kind of dedication separates the men from the boys, does it not?
Yeah, we're really zeroed in on the nutrition side of things as well. We hired an outside company this year called Training Lab out of Orange County, and they handle a lot of our nutritional issues. And we actually, for the most part, we try to get kids bigger. We don't like to have kids cut weight or lose weight. Sometimes there's a unique situation where, if we need to fill a spot, a kid might have to go down in weight, but it's, couple examples. We had one of our wrestlers who went down to 115 this year, and his weight was monitored on a daily basis by this company. Every day they plotted out where he was and to get him down to the correct weight by January 5th. So since August, they were plotting his weight out. They had the exact amount of calories he was to eat every single day since August. That kid would bring in his pre-made meals that he made, and he would bring them into our office every morning. He would come down for lunch and his breaks and microwave his meals. And this kid did that throughout the season to get down to that weight. We have another kid right now, Angelo Posada, who he just won the state championship at 175, and he didn't lose a lot of weight to get down there. And right now he's trying to get up to 215 by next year. So they have him on, something like 6,000 to 7,000 calories. They have plotted out exactly what he has to eat, how much protein, how much carbohydrates. So on a daily basis, the same thing with him. He's being tracked. So even if a kid has to lose weight, it's done very scientifically now. It's, at least with us, it's not kind of, just by chance, telling the kid like, hey, go lose these 10 pounds. It's done very carefully.
Go sit in the sauna was what they always did back in my day.
Trash bag over here.
Yeah, wearing a hefty bag.
I got a two-part question here, Coach. Do you ever get, seniors that graduate, go on to college and come back and complain that the college facilities aren't as good as Poway? And the second part is, does every senior wrestler that you have pretty much guaranteed go on to wrestle at college?
The first question, yeah, I really put our building up, our wrestling center up against almost all of the Division I programs. There's probably a 5 to 10% of those colleges that have really, really nice wrestling facilities, but then ours is right up there with most colleges. The second, most of our kids go on to wrestle, whether it's, we take care also to make sure that the kids are in the right place, offering suggestions and helping them out with not just going on to wrestle at a Division I college somewhere, but really kind of delving into the person that they are and what they're looking for academically, and the right fit for them. And sometimes that's not Division I, but most of our starters, they'll go on to wrestle in college.
You run the youth? Do you run Poway Elite Youth still?
I'm the director of the youth. I don't actually run the practices. I was in our little slammers, the 5 to 8 year olds. I jumped in there a little bit and actually got a takedown on one of the 6-year-olds the other day.
Is there
Little Slammers? That's a great name. I love it.
I like that one. Is there, because in football, youth football especially, that's why I wanted to ask you youth if it's any different in wrestling. Every parent there's always problems with parents. Is it the same way wrestling is just every sport? Because I feel like wrestling, it's not that way. But you're laughing, so I think it is.
Not our parents. No. I don't really, I guess I wouldn't call them problems. I think we take a lot of care also in kind of educating and building that relationship with parents when the kids are young. I had a parent come in yesterday, one of the slammer parents who's new to the sport, and he came in at noon to my office, and we sat down and chatted because he doesn't know how to help his kid, and he's looking for suggestions. So we do a lot of mentoring with the parents. I mean, when I was the Poway Elite coach, that was probably a bigger job than actually teaching the technique. So, but my office is always open. I tell parents, call me, text me with any questions, and it's kind of a team effort. And I want to hear, I want the communication from the parents, and I want to hear their questions and their concerns, and try to work with them. A lot of times, I think if a coach is not available, things can fester, and parents can look elsewhere for answers to questions that are not kind of in the lane you want them.
Well, John, I guess one of the advantages of your sport is it's pretty cut and dry. It's not like a subjective thing about who gets playing time. I assume that you earn your spot to wrestle in a meet, right? I mean, you got to beat your guys in your weight class, on your team.
Yeah, it's become a little bit different since I was in high school. When I was in high school, it was a wrestle off every week, and no matter how good you were or how good the other kid you were wrestling, you had to wrestle off every week. Things have changed, I think, at the collegiate level as well as high school, and we don't do a lot of wrestle offs. Probably every year there's maybe one or two instances at weight classes where we have to do a wrestle off. We have a varsity A and a varsity B team, and those two teams, or those kind of there might be three kids at a weight class. They travel together. They go to the same tournaments almost all year. So we can kind of build some data and say, well, this wrestler beat this kid who this kid lost to. And if that happens a couple times, you see a pattern there. You really won't need to wrestle off. Or sometimes those two kids from your same team wrestle each other in the same tournament. But this year, at the end of the year, we had two weight classes that were very, very tight. And, in both instances, kids were state ranked kids, and a couple of them were top 10 in the state. And we had to wrestle those matches, those weight classes off.
I mean, this is such like a kingdom inside of a high school. What did you do how do you keep all this together when COVID shut down the schools and your whole operation is on the school? How do you handle all these kids at that point?
Oh, it's a great story. We, my mind is, as soon as COVID hit and I heard that everybody was shutting down, my mind is a little bit twisted. I said, this is where we're going to get better. We're going to jump a bunch of people, and not just in wrestling, but I told my kids, we're going to get better academically. We're going to get better wrestling wise, and we're going to get better socially through this. That's part of the doing hard things every day. That was a difficult time. And at that point, everything shut down, and I figured out a plan A, B, and C. Just had to stay one step ahead of everything. And fortunately, we were working with Stephen Neal, world champ and from the Patriots. And he lives right down the street from the school. And at one point I remembered he told me, as soon as COVID hit, he had told me, if you ever need to put mats down for a couple days, you can use my basketball court. And I put that in the back of my mind, and I kind of brought it up again when I saw that everything was shutting down. And we built this facility in his backyard. It was like 7-foot footings. My president of the foundation at the time owned a scaffolding company. It was a huge building on his backyard, and we had 2 mats, and it had wall mats, and it was shrink wrapped, the whole thing, with a window and a door. And Stephen Neal, the way his mind works, he had a whole parking structure going. He was out front and gave certain kids numbers so that there wasn't a log jam, so that people in the community didn't complain. And we kept going. We had 50 kids from our high school working out there still, and all of our youth worked out as well every day. We never stopped.
And let me guess, nobody got COVID, right? Nobody ended up getting COVID? Shocking.
No cases of COVID. No cases of COVID. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to look back on that period of our time and shake our heads.
Can I get a follow-up question? Because
Well,
Neil was in there. I got to get this.
Sure.
World champs, speaking of world champs, who are you taking in a world championship? Ric Flair or Hulk Hogan?
Yeah.
Definitely Ric Flair.
Come on. All right, Paul, you can answer yours.
Well,
I had to get that out of the way.
It brings up the question, because your sport is such a discipline, and it goes back to ancient times. Do you enjoy the Americanization of wrestling, or the entertainment that is the WW whatever? And do you watch that stuff?
Yeah. No, not really. I kind of got brought into it when I was a kid. There was a guy named Bob Backlund, who was the champ before Hulk Hogan, and he was a friend of ours. He combined with my dad to direct a bunch of youth wrestling tournaments back east when I was little. So we built this relationship with him, and he was a Division II national champ. I remember he was a good wrestler. Real wrestling, and so yeah, he took us to some of those some of his competitions, if you want to call them that. And I remember sitting up right at the table near the bell. I met Andre the Giant and some of these other wrestlers when I was little. Me and a buddy of mine actually got up in the ring one time during one of the events, and we did a little wrestling match up in the ring. So I was around it a little bit when I was young, but I never really caught on to it or enjoyed it.
Well, because you were too busy being a state champion.
No. Wait, Coach, you might remember. I had a good friend at Pitt, and he loved WWE. And he coached at Lehigh now, Pat Santoro. You probably remember the same age group.
Oh yeah.
He
great
loved.
coach.
They liked that.
Yeah. I like the MMA and other kind of non-scripted combat sports.
Boy,
He's saying it's fake now.
Is that sacrilege to say that out loud, Coach? We'll have to cut that part out.
Don't tell Ric Flair I said that.
Real.
Well, just can you talk a little bit about your wrestling background? Because you're a multi-state champion, are you not, as an athlete?
Yeah. I won 4 state championships in Connecticut. Very small state, but you mentioned Pennsylvania. When I was little, my dad was my coach, and New England's not well known for their wrestling. It's gotten better since, but we went every weekend. We'd go to 2 tournaments, and one of them would be in Pennsylvania. We'd go, shoot out in the Volkswagen Bug to Allentown, a Lehigh Valley tournament on Saturday, and we'd jump back in that night and go to one in New Jersey or Long Island. I did that for about 6 or 7 years of my life when I was little. So yeah, I grew up in Connecticut, went to college. University of Minnesota, after Minnesota, went back to Connecticut and became a grad assistant at a college there, Division II college there, for a year, and then became the head coach there. And then I was out doing some recruiting in San Diego, and I'd never been here and just fell in love with it. And I went back and told my athletic director, I said, I don't know when I'm leaving, but I'm moving to San Diego. And then the next year, jumped in my car and drove out.
When's the first time you met Coach Wayne?
When I first came out, I actually coached at Valhalla High School for Glenn Takahashi, one of my roommates at Minnesota. I asked him, where's the place to coach? And he mentioned Valhalla and Poway, and he said, well, Poway doesn't do a lot of freestyle and Greco. Valhalla, that's where you want to be for that stuff. So I went to him first and struck up a relationship with Glenn and coached there. And then a couple years later, I struck up some conversations with Wayne and at spring tournaments. We were in the off season, seeing him every weekend, and at one point he just said, "Hey, do you want to come work at Poway? We can get you a job." So I didn't have a teaching job at Valhalla, so I was teaching at a different high school. So I said, "Absolutely," and then the rest was history. I started in 2002 at Poway, teaching and coaching.
So what's it like trying to, you worked for the 2 of the greatest names in prep wrestling as far as Southern California is concerned. Well, I'd be interested in knowing, are there any similarities between the 2, and what's it like trying to replace one of them?
I'd say what comes to mind first, the similarity is just the passion for the sport of wrestling and for teaching kids. They both loved to be on the mat and teach kids and mentor kids.
How do you, again, you have all this going on, you have to run this kingdom inside of a high school. You're still a regional Olympic center designation, right, where you do the PE?
Correct.
How do you find time to teach English?
Well, that's 8:30 to 3:30, and then my second job is the wrestling after that. Spend a lot of time in the evenings also working on things for wrestling and teaching. So they're both full-time jobs. Yeah, it's a lot of, I've had to learn time management.
Do you also coach the girls team?
Yes. Yeah, we have about 15 or 16 coaches on the staff. And kind of the way that we built the girls team in is they're part of the Poway Wrestling team, and they're in the room at the same time. They get the same coaching. We don't have separate practices, and all of our coaches are in there at the same time, except for our freshman coaches, 3 or 4 of them. They're in that back room working with the freshman kids.
Is that a minefield, or it seems like you navigate it pretty well?
As far as,
well, I mean,
as far as
it's having the girls and boys that in such close proximity in a very full contact sport. I assume boys and girls never wrestle one another, correct? Or is that
they do? Not in competition, they don't, but in practice they do. And yeah, you would think that. I know what you're saying, but the girls the same way. They're so focused on the sport of wrestling and getting better, and there's nothing really to tippy toe around. It's wrestlers. It's not really, girls and boys. It's just a bunch of wrestlers in that room.
Coach, he's old school. He's from the days of mud wrestling when it was big.
Yeah.
Is he?
Well, Coach, I am. Hey, more power to you. I have nothing but respect. Anybody I get winded wrestling with my dog, for Pete's sake, Coach. So, I mean, I have nothing but admiration for anybody.
And his dogs are 15-year-old rescues, just so you know. He fosters old rescue dogs, and he can't handle it.
But I still get winded. Well, Coach, you have to admit, I did have some technique. I almost pinned your kid.
I was going to say, you almost got our kid Navita that was the state champ. You almost got him there.
Oh, he looked like that looked legitimate. That was about as legitimate as scripted WWE. Come on.
I call that the Rudy bump and grind.
Stop.
Why are you just can't handle
You were talking about scripted wrestling.
I was driving with my hips, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, come on.
Coach, I just want to go back to Wayne because, man, here he is. He took the bar to here, and then somehow anybody in Vegas would have said, okay, the program is going to slip a little bit, and somehow you've kept the bar at its level and even tried to exceed it. How does one do that? Because normally it goes the other way.
Yeah, just trying to get better every year. I'm always resetting the goals. The state championship used to be the big goal for Poway High School, and now that's kind of secondary at a lower level for us. We started talking to these kids when they were younger about winning world championships, and since we've had 2 or 3 guys that have made world teams for age groups, and I think we'll have a few more this year. There's a big tournament in the summer called Fargo USA Wrestling's National Championship, which is the biggest tournament in the world for those age groups, for high school age groups. And, we've broken all kinds of records at that tournament as well with how many kids have qualified for it. And then placers, we had, just from the Poway High School, we had 12 All-Americans there, which most states don't get 12 All-Americans at that tournament. And, in the style of Greco-Roman 2 years ago, we beat Poway High School's age group, 16 and under. We beat every state except for 2, I think it was, just with our kids. So, as far as raising the bar, we just again, I try to stretch these kids, and state championship is great, Fargo's great, but how high can we get? How far can we push this thing? How great can we be? And that's not just in wrestling. Again, I have to add in, it's academically as well with the schools that we're sending kids to.
I'm going to go back to, because he does social media, so he's definitely going to post a thing of him wrestling. And when I saw it, when you're wrestling the kid, did you see Fox Chaser when DuPont used to make Schultz wrestle with him and then make him let him win? Did you get that same feeling as that? I know you've seen it.
Now I can't unsee it. Oh, man.
Is that not the same thing, though?
John DuPont.
Yeah, is that not the same look? I'm sorry.
They do kind of look alike.
You know, you're so jealous.
I'm just saying, DuPont pinned half the Olympic team.
If I took my sport coat off, I would have pinned that kid in 20 seconds. I had 100 pounds on him.
Too restricted.
You know, the one, though, I do still have I was going to file a claim because your kid threw me into the camera stand back in...
Andre.
Yeah, and that, I mean, he assured me, hey, oh, yes, Mr. Rudy, I can get you up. And then when the moment came, he collapsed under the weight. His knees buckled.
I can't find that. I was going to make a post that you were 0-2 against Poway wrestlers. I can't find that on the internet anywhere, though. I swear, I was looking for that.
Just put the DuPont one out there from Fox Chaser. They won't know the difference.
All right, Coach, you got any more?
No.
We're going to let Coach, before we let you go, a couple things that I want to clip up. Do you have video of your facility or pictures of your facility, a bunch of them that I can have
I do.
in the next couple hours? Please send them along. And then
I'll forward you his number, too.
Or just, do that. But
I'll send it to that email.
I want you to email them to me at prudy@kosi.com because that'll speed up the process. And then any pictures of you and Wayne, I'd like. Any pictures of you as a young wrestler, I'd like. And what else do I want to talk about? I think we'll be good. I've got video, obviously, of your kids, so.
You want me to clip the DuPont clip from YouTube?
No, we can't. We're not allowed to do that.
It's on YouTube.
Coach, you're one of the few people that, with a non-football background, that are here, that have been in this podcast. So that alone tells you what we think of you.
Great, thank you. I appreciate you guys.
You're the king of kings.
Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, Coach. Bert's going to be calling you with
guys.
my email, and I'll send you a link to the podcast, its entire conversation. PPR Podcast 156 is now over. Turn off the machines, everybody. Thanks, John.